audible? Am I audible? Perfect. Thank you so much. So 100%. There, I think we're good. So greetings to members of the media, DA public representatives present, and most importantly, the South Africans watching at home. And welcome to the True State of the Province address here in Gauteng. Now, over the past few months, the DA Premier Candidate, Msimanga, has done an extensive oversight across all regions to assess the real state of the province. Our infrastructure is collapsing, crime is on the rise, our schools and hospitals are in a state of decay, and our police are heavily under-resourced. Gauteng has never been in more need of rescuing. On Thursday, the President told us about the life of Tentswalo, and let me assure you, Tentswalo is definitely not a resident of Gauteng, because the dreamland that the President described does not represent the lived experience of the majority of the residents of Gauteng. And on Monday, we will likely see the same story being told by Premier Lesufi at the State of the Province address. The residents of Gauteng don't want antidotes and fables, they want real solutions. And so here to present the true State of the Province address is our DA Gauteng provincial leader and Premier Candidate, Msimanga. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kwena. Good morning to fellow members of the provincial legislature, Honorable Minister of Dr. Ivan Meyer from the Western Cape, members of the media that is here, but more importantly, the people of South Africa, more particularly the people of Gauteng. I bid you all a good morning. Indeed, in 1994, we were told that freedom is coming tomorrow. And this was a song, if you had listened to Sarafina, watch Sarafina, there was a saying there, or a song, freedom is coming tomorrow, get ready mama, prepare for your freedom. Freedom is coming tomorrow. This is the hope that we all had in that historic 1994 elections. Sadly, for the residents of Gauteng, they are not free. They will not be free until they are freed from the shackles of unemployment, poor service delivery, and load shedding brought to you by the current government. They will not be free until they are able to find meaningful employment. They will not be free until they live in a safe environment, in safe communities. They will not be free until women are able to walk the streets without feeling that they will be, or without fearing that they will be raped, and having the minister that will tell them that they are lucky to only be raped once if they are women in South Africa. Corruption is running rampant. Unemployment is at an all-time high. Crime rate has reached crisis levels. Schools still have, certain schools still has asbestos that still needs to be fixed. We have thousands that are starving because of the Gauteng provincial government has stopped funding non-government organizations that has actually been fighting for very, very long to end GBV, or actually to end poverty. The list of challenges that our residents face is daily, is endless, and require a capable, accountable, and transparent government that is committed to delivering. And that government is the Democratic Alliance, and will give the people of Gauteng that. A province once overflowing with economic opportunities is now a shell of its former self. Gauteng is the economic hub of the country and should be the province that is rich in opportunities. But sadly, our province's resources have been and continue to be looted by corrupt politicians, officials, and a few individuals who have infiltrated the ruling party and who continue to then use their political association or affiliation to then loot the state. This has led to the collapse of many municipalities, resulting in them being unable to deliver the most basic of services, such as removal of waste, fixing potholes, and actually then honoring their debts to Eskom and to rainwater. With the general elections around the corner, our residents are once again offered the opportunity to vote for a new government, both nationally and provincially. We have an opportunity to change the lives of our residents, who are currently subjected to high cost of living, poor service delivery, limited access to water, and ongoing load shedding, amongst other things. They are subjected to unemployment, they are subjected to children that are stunted, they are subjected to healthcare that is falling apart, they are subjected to inferior education to a great degree. We need to change that, and that needs to change very, very fast. Next week, Gauteng Premier Candidate will deliver his second and very last State of the Province address. Sticking to the ANC formula of lying unprovoked, he will tell the Gauteng residents that he and his comrades have been working tirelessly on getting Gauteng back to work. But as we all know, this will not be the truth, and this is not the truth. Just like the president, he will try to distance himself from what has actually been the legacy of his party in government. He will try to distance himself from what Makura has actually done before him. But what most and many people forget is that he has actually been part of government and has actually been the leader of government business. So he cannot distance himself from the failures of government. And I can go on and tell you about what is going to be said. But I think you can go and study for yourself, and you can read for yourself what has actually been the empty promises that Panyaza has made since he took over office and since David Makura took over office. But I can sit here and tell you about all these failures, but I'm not going to do that, because I think as South Africans, we need to get to a time when we now start talking about what is then the way forward. What is the blueprint to then start getting things done? And this is something that I want to then concentrate on here today. I want to talk to you about how do we reimagine a Gauteng that works beyond the ANC. I want us to then start thinking about what it will mean to have a Gauteng that have economic opportunities, a Gauteng that has hospitals that are working, clinics that are fully staffed, that have medication, social services, including the NGOs that will be working hand in hand. I want you to imagine, while you're having infrastructure that is working, trains that are running, the police service that is actually working as it's supposed to, unlike what we have been having for the last 2 decades or so. South Africa, and mainly in Gauteng, we have over 2.5 million unemployed residents in this province, and tens of thousands of those who have now become disgruntled job seekers. The government job, as I've always said, is not to create jobs, but to create an environment in which jobs can be created. And I've taken the time to crisscross this province. I've gone to industrial areas that we used to have, industrial hubs. You go to Bennyville, you go to Soweto, Orlando West, you go to some of the, to Kempton Park and the surrounding areas, and you see how some of these old industrial areas have now been abandoned. In certain instances, now been turned into chop shops. In certain instances, now they've been turned into areas where criminals actually then do their deeds. This is not the way that we're supposed to be going. But we need to then revisit those and say, how do we then rebuild the industries that have actually then been abandoned? Look into these spaces, revisit these spaces, and make sure that we fix them, and then we give them to industrialists that are there. We've heard a number of times, about the township industrialists and all of that, but where are they supposed to operate if the spaces in which they're supposed to be operating in are not conducive, are actually hijacked in most cases? You go to Pennyville, they will tell you of a Thabo, who they claim this Thabo is somebody that will send people to then come in a venture to come and demand you to pay for rent, but nothing gets to be done in fixing the spaces in which these people are operating in. And most of them who have run businesses for a very, very long time find themselves running out of speed, running out of resources to continue to go. We need to reclaim these spaces back. We need to make sure that people that are seriously about running business and actually then employing people get to then occupy the spaces, and we want to reclaim those spaces, fix them up, hand them over to people that will make the best use of them. We want to make sure that we prioritize the special economic zones. Now we've heard, about the special economic zones. You would hear time and time again the northern corridor, the automotive industry being mentioned time and time again. But what you're not being told is how they have actually fought with government to then say, if we are to succeed, there's certain things that you need to do. You need to then make sure that insulate us from load shedding. You need to make sure that we have dedicated lines for water. You need to make sure that there's safety and security for our people, our assets. But that hasn't been coming forward. You go to Ekurhuleni, we are told that there is the Aerotropolis. But it has been an Aerotropolis just on name, by name. But in actual sense, we haven't really done much to make sure that, those goods that can be produced in Ekurhuleni are produced, and thousands and hundreds and thousands of jobs are created in that space, where people from Kempton Park, people from Tembisa, Togoza, Duduza can find meaningful employment in these areas if we are to do that. It is requiring of a government that cares to then say, we are not going to play a lip service in this particular space, but we are going to go out there and we are going to get more and more of our people, employed through ensuring that we're able to then attract investment. How? Let's fix the infrastructure. We have been saying for a very, very long time, if you're not going to fix your infrastructure, you will not be able to then attract investment. Nobody wants to come and invest in a province, in a country where the infrastructure is falling apart, where the sewer are just running down the line, where electricity is not guaranteed, where water is not actually guaranteed. But more importantly, when roads are not themselves fixed on an ongoing basis or maintained. This is something that we have been saying. Gauteng needs a Gauteng infrastructure master plan that will ensure that all these things are then being able to be taken care of. And that will show the seriousness in which we take attracting business into Gauteng. And we can then start showing the investors how serious we are about attracting them and keeping them here. We must also move with haste to create an environment that enables the flourishing of businesses and creating employment opportunities. That means that at some point we now need to then look at those that have for the longest of time say, we want to work with government to create jobs, but we don't want to be paying bribes. We don't want to be paying brown envelopes for us to get access. Access cannot be denied just because I'm not willing or not prepared to pay a brown envelope. We need to then have a mentality that says we are ready and open for business. And this is what we want to then give our people. We want to then say to the small business that you will be paid on time. You will be paid on time because a lot of small business that are doing business with government go under because they are using most of their money and they don't have reserves to be able to then sustain while they're waiting for government to pay them. And this is something that we want to make sure that gets to end as a matter of agency. We also need to make sure that we cut a lot of red tape. There is red tape in government where you have seen, and we continue to see, that those that have to do business with government has to rely on being subcontractors instead of themselves being the main contractors. Why? Because we have failed to ensure that we have bite-sized chunks in terms of breaking down what government contracts can be all about, so that those that are coming, smaller businesses, are able to qualify, are able to then fund, the projects that they need to then get involved in. And also, we don't want jobs or we don't want contracts that are only awarded to comrades. And this is why we are going to do away with businesses that are linked, to comrades that have not delivered. And we have seen most of those. And this is why we have taken the Saudis of this world, to Treasury and say, why can't we blacklist those that, are politically linked, that haven't been able to deliver services as they're supposed to be delivering services. But more than that, ensure that they don't continue to, loot the state coffers. I can tell you, having moved across this province, I have seen what most of these companies do. You go to places like Mogale City, you go to places like Rand West, and you look at some of the substandard work that has been done in terms of building houses. And you find that sometimes it's the same company over and over and over and over again that does the shoddy work, but then continues to enjoy contracts. That is something that we are saying we want to then stop as a matter of agency. We also want to make sure that when we're talking about enhancing the ability of government to create an environment where jobs can be created, but also to then say when government itself is actually giving jobs, that is done on a fair basis. Now, you would know about the EPWP story and how it has been manipulated and used by ANC comrades to make sure that they're able to only give their own connected people, their branch chairpersons, and all of them an opportunity. We're now moving away from that and say there needs to be an open, transparent system where equal opportunities can then be given. I'm worried and that nobody seems to be animated when you hear Panyaza Lesufi standing up and saying they are willing to then give 3,000 jobs to the veterans in order to keep them voting, in order to keep them in the ANC. What we need to be saying is how do we then open up so that everybody who is able, everybody who can apply and actually then can qualify will get an opportunity. And this is why we will introduce systems that will ensure transparency in how jobs in government gets to be given out. An example can be the lottery system that we have actually then employed in the city of Tshwane, where jobs are not reserved or cannot only be given to comrades or those that are affiliated with certain political parties or actually close to the councillors in that space, but can be given up to everybody that is in need of a job and can qualify for a job. We also want to then pay a special attention to the infrastructure development or the infrastructure department in Gauteng. Now, we have seen that if you're not going to be able to then, take care of your infrastructure, as I said earlier on, then you can forget about getting the economy going. You can forget about giving people a dignified life. People can get a dignified life if infrastructure is working around them. That infrastructure means running water. There's certain parts of Midrand that is still without water. There's certain parts of Johannesburg South that have to struggle without water. There's certain parts, if you go into the CBD of Johannesburg, if you don't get water at about 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning, forget about having water the rest of the day. That is something that we now need to then look at and make sure that we're able to address as a matter of agency. We need to make sure that when we're talking about infrastructure that gives our people dignity, and that we're looking at infrastructure that we can then not only transform, into the future, but we can then maintain it going forward. I have crisscrossed and been to hospitals. I've been to clinics. I've been to police stations that are falling apart. The one that broke my heart is visiting a police station, or what used to be a police station when you go into the Ren West. That was later on turned into a tavern. That was later on turned into a warehouse for stocking alcohol and storing alcohol, and then now it's sitting as a building that is just abandoned. Yet you have people that have to travel 35 kilometers to get to the nearest police station. You have a hospital that is now going to be closed. Johan Haynes, if you go to Van der Bijl Park. Johan Haynes that I visited as well, that you have literally worms that are coming out of the pipes there. You have lifts that are not working. You have ambulances that are parked there growing grass. Yet we are saying we want to give the people a quality of life. We need to make sure that we employ quality and we employ dedicated and very capable CEOs to look after our hospitals, so that we're able to then move power away from national to province, from province to this entity, so that they can run their hospitals much more effectively. And this is something that we are very much passionate about. And we need to make sure that we're able to then get right as a matter of agency. We need to make sure that when we fix or build our hospitals, that we're able to then give our hospitals the state-of-the-art touch and make sure that they are maintained to retain that status. As I'm talking to you, quite a number of hospitals now don't even qualify to be called hospitals anymore. Yes, they might be, providing the service, but in essence, they actually are run in businesses that have actually been condemned. If you go to Kalafong Hospital as an example, and quite a number of hospitals around, the Kempton Park Hospital that is, for a number of years, we've been told that it will be fixed, but nothing gets to be done. If you go and visit some of these things, you realize that until such time as you're able to then employ capable people, appoint them to these hospitals, give them the power to procure and to maintain that infrastructure themselves, they will be able to then run much more better operations than what we have been having at this point in time. The solution is to devolve power, not to hawk power around a department that has shown time and time again that it is incapable. The departments need to oversee their own infrastructure budgets. We need to make sure that schools are empowered to then look at the maintenance of their own schools, and they are given the budgets to then do that. Currently now, you have to wait for a department, and you find that there is a fight between the Department of Infrastructure Development and also the Department of Education, where one points out to the other and say, it is this one's fault. The other one says, no, it's this one's fault. We need to then ensure that there is certainty in terms of who gets to do what, and who gets to then be held responsible for what is happening. And this is something that we have said needs to be done as a matter of urgency. By doing this, we will also ensure that we're able to then start building relationships with the private sector, those that can actually be contracted to assist our schools in maintaining the infrastructure. We will have, the private sector that can also help our health, facility of health department to maintain its infrastructure as well. And we will be able to then show how a relationship between the private sector and the public sector can work in harmony to deliver quality services to our people. We will also need to make sure that in doing that, we revisit our police stations as well. And I'll talk a little bit later about that. Our residents will continue to, unfortunately, be burdened by the issues of e-tolls. Right now, we have been told that the e-tolls are a thing of the past. And I know the media has now started the lie Sufi. I don't want to go down that road. But the fact of the matter is the e-tolls are still here. I still have my bills that I'm receiving right now while I'm told that the e-tolls are a thing of the past. The people of Gauteng have been told that they have 13 billion rand that they have to now settle. 13 billion rand that they have to settle, which is, by the way, growing by the day, because there is actually interest that is accruing on this debt. And while they're taking long to finalize how they're going to pay back this money, the 13 billion rand is earning interest on a daily basis. But over and above that, the people of Gauteng will actually then be burdened with then maintaining the road of the nation, the roads that fall under national authority, the N1, the N4, the N3, amongst others, which we will then have to then continue to pay for when we then took over, this debt. This is something that we have been saying. It's unfortunate and unfair that a system that is not wanted has actually then been put, and now the people of Gauteng has to then carry the cost. But we are saying, as part of the solution, we need to make sure that we scrap the e-tolls once and for all. We then use the gantries, for traffic management purposes. We can use them in ensuring that you then do the average speed in between the gantries, so that you have people that are driving within the speed limit. You can actually then go, because we intend on ensuring that the trucks will not be running on our roads 24 hours a day. So you can then actually use those to monitor when trucks are allowed to be on the road, issue fines when they need to be issued, and make sure that we're able to then generate an income out of those that will also help in managing traffic going forward, and in actually ensuring that there is law enforcement on our roads going forward. We cannot continue to ignore this issue around the e-tolls, and we cannot have this issue being used as a political tool time and time again every time we get closer to the elections. I can go back to 2019 and tell you what they said. I can go back to 2014 when they started talking about when we will fix this. And then so on and so forth it goes. But we need to then make sure that once and for all, we bring the issue of the e-tolls to a complete stop. There's also an issue around the rail infrastructure maintenance. Now, anybody who is serious about ensuring that you get the economy going, if you're not going to get the transport infrastructure right, the public transport infrastructure right, then forget about getting the economy going. And part of what we want to then do is to join the fight about decentralizing the rails from a national to a provincial perspective. Why? Because then we can then start investing in laying out our rail infrastructure. We have an opportunity in Gauteng. We have an opportunity where the industries that are here are then saying to us, it will cut the cost if we're able to then get rail going again. You don't have to have 50 trucks going to Durban, as an example, carrying vehicles. You can fix that rail infrastructure that is moving from Tshwane, that is moving from Limpopo through Tshwane or through Gauteng out. And if you're able to then fix that infrastructure, you should be able to then get the economy going again. And this is something that we want to then do. And this is why we want to join that fight and say that national must devolve power from national to province, so that the province can then take ownership of some of the rail infrastructure. It breaks my heart that when you go to Orlando right now, what used to be a hope for many people waiting for their fathers to return, now not even a single brick is actually standing there. The whole stations have been broken down. In fact, right now, as we speak, even the tracks themselves are now being stolen. You go to Hammanskraal, where we should actually now be investing to make sure that the East Rail that is running from the north, down all the way to the south, where people can actually move from Hammanskraal all the way to Vanderbijl Park. But then we don't have that infrastructure, and it doesn't look like there is a plan to turn that around. The only thing we hear is a plan of a speed train that will be moving from Limpopo, Limpopo to Johannesburg, Minister. If you cannot even take care of your basic infrastructure, how do you then start planning for bigger things? And this is why we are saying we are serious about ensuring that there is actually movement of our people and goods. And this is why part of the plan is to fight the fight about decentralizing of the infrastructure around the rail and make sure that it gets to be provincialized, that we're able to then assist in making sure that we can move goods more freely, we can have people getting reliable public transport in a form of trains to, and cheaper as well, to be able to then get to places of work on time and, much more affordably and comfortably so. This is something that we also want to then put across. I've spoken about the issues of, where we are in terms of the infrastructure around the police. But, the important thing here is that we also need to really own up and face the fact that until such time as we decentralize the police in South Africa, we will not be able to then get anywhere. The crimes that are committed in Gauteng will be very different to the crimes that are committed in Limpopo, will be very different to the crimes that are committed in the Eastern Cape, and therefore requires a different kind of thinking. It requires decentralizing. We cannot have Begitele dictating to all provincial commissioners what they need to do. We need to, first of all, take politics out of policing. We need to, second of all, ensure that those that are at a provincial level are equipped and empowered to do what needs to be done. Now, we've heard about Panyaza and the so-called Amapanya and all of that. But what needed to happen is that we needed to ensure that we fight to decentralize the police service so that the police at the provincial level can be recruited, can be trained, can be deployed at a provincial level. In Gauteng, we need quite a number of units, specialized units. We need a drug unit in Gauteng to fight the scourge of drugs in Gauteng. We need a gang unit in Gauteng to fight the scourge of gangs and where the gangs find themselves operating. We need to make sure that there is an informal mining unit as well to go and bring the fight to the Zamazamas. When I went and met with the police in Rand West and in Randfontein and in Mkhale, they said we are not going to go and fight with the Zamazamas, because we go there with 9mm guns. They come out with rifles. They come out with AK-47s. You are outmatched from the get-go. We cannot go and chase them underground because we're not trained to go there and fight with them there. We don't have equipment like night goggles, thermal glasses and all of that. But they need to then make sure that you have units that are trained to deal specifically with that. You have units that can actually be equipped to then go and deal with that. And this is what we are saying. We need to then decentralize the police from a national to a provincial level, so that from a provincial perspective, we can recruit, train, and actually have specialized units that can deal, with this kind of crimes that we have here. We need, a unit that will also deal decisively with the business forums here, who are stopping progress from happening in most of our communities. They're stopping projects left, right, and center, but nobody seems to know how to then deal with it. That's what we now need to do. And this is part of the blueprint that we are now saying we want to then propose to the people of Gauteng. We want to make sure that the current existing police stations are actually up to a standard as well. It's shocking that you go to certain police stations and you are told that don't come after 6 o'clock because there's nobody who can assist you. The police station 6 o'clock closes down. You do have police stations. You go to police stations in the east where almost every other policeman is limping, and you ask them why. They show you that they've been working in containers for the last 20 years. No proper police stations built, but they've been working in containers, and now you're working in a container that is rotten at the bottom. You step in there, you fall. You break your knee or you break your ankle or whatever the case may be. And that's what the police morale is at an all-time low, because they are saying we are operating under very difficult circumstances. The equipment is not there. The place in which we're operating from is actually not conducive for us to do our work. I've been to Didier where the police are saying to me, we only have 2 vehicles for the whole of Didier as an area. And it means that if you arrest somebody in Didier, you have to now take them to Joburg Central or wherever else, which means that for half the day, if one of the vehicles is out of commission, and therefore the communities are already crying. They're saying they cannot have visible policing because vehicles are not there. And this is something that we now need to then address. And we have been saying, let's stop funding things that shouldn't be funded. Let's stop wasting money on VIP. Let's get money back into where it will be able to then serve the communities. And this is part of the blueprint that we want to then be sharing with you. Let me talk about load shedding and what it means to then service delivery. As we mentioned earlier, load shedding continues to be a problem, not only for this province, but across the country. A reliable supply of electricity is vital for job creation and economic growth. To sufficiently tackle the challenge of load shedding, we must engage and meaningfully engage the independent power producers. And I'm saying meaningfully because what we have been having so long is just engagement for the media's sake. It's not engagement to ensure that we move legislation, move in ensuring that we actually get this, the IPPs on board fully. We need to make sure that at a local level, the municipalities are allowed to engage with IPPs. I know that Tanya Campbell, when was the mayor, actually started that program, but it looks like it has now been parked. I know that Western Cape right now is actually at the forefront of taking it to the next level. Right now, when we're talking about having load shedding stage 4, Cape Town is on stage 2, or not load shedding. When we're going further up, they move 2 stages lower. They are now at a point where they're able to then ensure that those that are independent power producers or those that are producing electricity through solar, all of that, are able to then use their access to feed into the system, which is also helping. That is meaningful engagement. That is what we now need to be talking to and moving the people of Gauteng towards. It doesn't help that we are only hearing about the IPPs, and then you hear about the contracts that are being ready to be signed. 4 years down the line, we have still not moved a single inch. We need to move with speed. There are those that we have been engaging with that are saying that they are ready to start helping us to then get this thing rolling. They are ready to start investing. In the city of Tshwane, as an example, there are those that have looked at the Rayval, there are those that have looked at Pretoria West. The Kelvin guys are saying they can give much more capacity than what has been given. So there is already appetite to make sure that we get going. But the issue is to engage meaningfully and to have legislation that will push forward at a provincial level to ensure that we're able to then deal with this thing once and for all. But we need to also ensure, as I said, that we need an infrastructure master plan. We need to make sure that within municipalities as well, we tackle the issue of infrastructure that is collapsing. Now, Mfuleni as an example, Rand West, and you can name the number of municipalities, will not be able to then catch up in terms of the debts that they incurred. Even Johannesburg, even Tshwane, all of them. They are now incurring millions and millions of debt each and every month. But they will not be able to then pay that because A, you have technical losses. B, you have a lot of illegal connections that have taken place throughout the years. We now need to start reversing those by ensuring that you fix your infrastructure, but you also then ensure that those that are using can afford, should be paying for the usage of electricity and water. There are people who are saying, well, you know, we don't have meters, so you cannot not charge us. There are those who are also saying, well, if the government is not willing, you know, to come and fix some of this infrastructure, then we are going to be sitting with this problem going forward. This is why when Panyaza went out and said, we are going to now be reinstalling, you know, the substations, the question that we've been asking is, and then what happens after that? Because then what you have actually then continued to create is a state where government at a provincial level or municipal level is supposed to then be paying for that electricity. Those that at the end of the day are using but not metered aren't going to then continue. And therefore, you will ensure that the municipalities continue to be burdened. And this is why we are saying, let's fix that by ensuring that you have a whole value chain corrected as you go. You fix the infrastructure to make sure that there's a reliable supply of electricity, reliable supply of water. But those that are at the end using can actually then get proper, adequate, fair metering that is taking place to ensure that everybody is able to then pay for the service that they are receiving. That is the plan that we also want to then bring to the people of Gauteng. You cannot continue to then say that you will only, you know, fix substations if you are not going to then ensure that ultimately you have people that will take responsibility not only for maintaining that, but also for ensuring that we're able to then pay for that. There are people who are saying now that, you know, we need to then fast track the issue of the national health insurance. Minister, I think you can agree with me that the health service in South Africa has fallen to pieces. As mentioned to you earlier on, you're having a situation right now where hospitals are actually falling apart. You have hospitals that have now actually, you know, been declared as unfit, you know, to continue to provide service. Now, if you're not able to fix that, how do you then envisage the national health insurance working and providing health care? The health professionals have said for a number of years, let's use and fix the infrastructure at the public level, and then you will see that, you know, there's no need for you to then fight and try to thrust, you know, this national health insurance down people's throats. It will happen on its own that people will actually want to then use, you know, the public service much more. But as things stand right now, you have what I call the skinny jean hospital that continues, you know, to rob people. We're now talking about R1 billion that is actually then being investigated in that particular hospital, where not only money has been spent to, you know, to buy skinny jeans, but money has also been spent, 10,000 rand to buy a bucket, a 20-liter bucket, 10,000 rand that has been spent there. You having money that has been 5,000 rand that has been spent to buy a couch, and, you know, so many of them, but nobody can actually even point where those buckets or those couches are. And so on it goes. We cannot talk about the NHI if we cannot fix the infrastructure that we have right now and fix our hospitals. And this is why I go back to the challenge and say that part of what we want to then do is to make sure that you are able to then have CEOs of hospitals that are capable people, that are hired on merit, not because they are comrades, and you are able to then ensure that you hold them to account. Give them the responsibility, but then also hold them to account. We need to make sure that, you know, we provide state-of-the-art hospitals. And that goes into us revisiting and honestly visiting our hospitals and saying which ones needs to be fixed and needs to be fixed as a matter of urgency. We cannot continue, Democrats, you know, where our learners continue to be taught in an environment that is not conducive for learning and teaching. There are schools that are still using asbestos roofing, and that remains in our province, and that is a problem. Many of our schools in the province are overcrowded, which is not conducive for learning and teaching as well. Again, maintenance is not done properly, leading to the department having to provide mobile classrooms and bathrooms to some of our schools, allowing schools to appoint service providers to ensure that they are able to then maintain and ensure maintenance going forward is the key. to us being able to then give our students and actually the teachers there a good environment in which they can all operate in. There is something that is developing in Gauteng that is of a trend that is warning. You go to a number of areas, you go to Pretoria North as an example, and you go to Kempton Park. You now have schools that are now mushrooming, containers that are now being dumped somewhere without municipalities being consulted in terms of how infrastructure is actually to be connected to those schools. And then you hear, this is now the economy, the corrupt economy that is taking place. You now also hear of buses that are moving people across town, or people across town to be able to then get to school. I challenge you to go to Soshanguve, I challenge you to go to Mabopane and Garankuwa and see how many brick and mortar schools have been abandoned. Yet the children from that same community are now taken to Pretoria North to containers. There's somebody those containers are not even bought, they are rented. The scholar transport, somebody's paying and somebody's gaining out of it. Who is actually then making money out of the desperation of these children? While you have left school that children could have walked to, that could have actually been fixed. Yet at the same time, we're having, to then move children across town and then be able to then, or then where you're having to pay hundreds of thousands and millions every month in terms of transporting them, in terms of renting those, those containers. And this is why we are saying that the maintenance of schools should be a priority as well, so that you don't have to have schools that are abandoned. You don't have to have that infrastructure that is falling apart. You can maintain it, and we can then also ensure that adequate learning is actually taking place. And this is something that we want to then do here in Gauteng. We have heard about the so-called lifestyle audits that Panyaza Lesufi and before him, David Makura has been promising us. It's quite interesting that we haven't really seen any of that taking shape. We've been told time and time again that there will be lifestyle audits that will be conducted and the results thereof will be made very, very much public. None of that has happened. In fact, what we have been duped to believing is that a couple of questions that had been asked from the president's office is now, being dubbed as the lifestyle audit, which is not. And we will have explained a lot about Paul Mashatile and all the surrounding comrades that are now living a large and beautiful life, while the majority of the people of Gauteng are still living in desperation and actually in a life of poverty. We need to make sure that not only do we push against lifestyle audits for politicians, but we also ensure that the officials that are found guilty are actually then prosecuted. Not only should we have officials that resign before so that they can avoid prosecution, but you have people that can actually then be prosecuted, including the politicians, and we able to then attach assets and take assets away from the criminal elements to bring back into government so that we're able to then provide services to the people of this beautiful province of ours. Numerous investigation has been initiated by the Special Investigating Unit. One in particular is the report on the procurement of the personal protective equipment. You would remember that the 432 million rand that was used to sanitize empty schools. We still haven't heard anything about that. The 500 million that was used to, to procure and build a new hospital or to renovate the Anglo Ashanti Hospital, which we haven't still heard anything about. Yet at the same time, you have Premier who's hell-bent on not releasing the minutes of when the decisions were taken to then allocate money there. And this is things that we are going to follow up when we take over, because we do believe that there is a lot that can be traced in order to recoup some of the money. That money can then be put forward as an investment, as a seed, as Patrick would like to put it, as a seed towards ensuring that we're able to get the infrastructure going in Gauteng. I want to then say in conclusion that the time for the pipe dream is over. We need a government in place that is solutions-based, and those solutions need to be practical. It needs to be a solution that can be implemented and be implemented immediately. In the days to come, we will share with you some of our plans as we unfold, as we release to you the manifesto, both at a national level and also at a provincial level. We will give some timelines to some of the things that we want to then do. We want to make sure that the solutions that we want to provide will be felt by our residents. There is still hope. The true state of the province address that Gauteng residents can look forward to is the address given by the new government led by the Democratic Alliance after this year's general election. a government that is solutions-orientated and makes no excuse, a government that is transparent and accountable to its citizens, a government that creates opportunities for all Gauteng residents, regardless of political affiliation, a government that consults with and respects its citizens, a government that prioritizes getting the basics right rather than making unrealistic promises that cannot be kept. A government that cares for and protects our society's most vulnerable members. A government that will be led with efficiency and ethical leaders. A government that will value the private sector's contribution to job creation, providing goods and services, and stimulating the economy for better growth. A government that is committed to the safety and well-being of our Gauteng residents. This is indeed a reality waiting to happen, and it will happen at the end of May. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Solly. If you can just give us 2 minutes, we're going to set up quickly for a short panel discussion, after which members of the media will be welcome to ask our Premier Candidate or any of the panel members any questions they may have. So please just bear with us for 30 seconds, I think. Thank you. Audible? Perfect. Cool. Thank you so much then. Everyone will now be engaging various leaders from the different regions around Gauteng to delve deeper into the true state of the province. To my far right, we have Themba Fosi, who's MMC of Utilities inside the city of Tshwane. Next to him is Councillor Belinda Kaiser Ichozonjoko. She is the DA caucus leader in the city of Johannesburg. Obviously, we then have Solly Msimanga, our provincial leader here in Gauteng and Premier Candidate. To his left, we have Dr. Ivan Meyer, who's the MEC of Agriculture in the Western Cape, as well as a DA federal chairperson. And then to my right, immediate right, we have Tanya Campbell, who's the former mayor of Nkureleni, as well as the DA caucus leader that side. So I think we'll dive in firstly with you, Belinda. We speak a lot, about load shedding, job shedding, and I think in Johannesburg, it's a new term for us. We've been seeing water shedding. What impact is Rand Water's failures really having on Joburg and its residents?
It's got a huge impact. I think we all know that Joburg residents, there are some residents in the south, as the Premier Candidate has alluded to, that has been without water for about 60 days. And I always want to take this back to 1996. In 1996, the Johannesburg became a metro. But it seems that there have been no plans to have a coordinated approach with Rand Water and Joburg Water to deal with the infrastructure that is now going to accommodate the number of people by bringing in all these sub-councils. And the unfortunate part is when residents raise these concerns, they are firstly reminded that not only is it impacted by load shedding, that obviously with the pumping of the reservoirs, and they use that as an excuse, but there's a blame game between Rand Water and Joburg Water. The other challenge is not only the blame game, but the fact that I was shocked to find out a few weeks ago, that some of the pipes that is in Johannesburg, the pipes were laid in 1903. And some of the pipes that needed to be replaced has gone out of circulation to connect. And those are some of the issues that our Premier Candidate, I think, raised quite strongly as well, with the fact that there's no plan from not only Rand Water, but from this current government to ensure that there's sufficient budget allocated and there is protection of the infrastructure. So it's load shedding, it's water shedding, and it leads to further issues like cholera outbreaks. So you must imagine, we're talking about just a formal part of places that are not getting water. What about the informal settlements? And then there's the issue of corruption as well, that is added onto all these things, where you have trucks that are now becoming another corrupt economy, where people have to pay for water. And once again, Rand Water, Joburg Water, do not know what is happening when you ask these kind of questions. So it's a whole combination of issues that are affecting not only the residents of Johannesburg, but I think everybody as well. And one of the things that I'm very happy about is that in a DA government, these things will be zoomed into to ensure that we look at the infrastructure, not only a sufficient budget, but also the protection of the infrastructure, and that has not been happening over many, many years. Thank you.
No, perfect. Thank you so much, Belinda. And I know that you and MMC Fosi were discussing the issues of load shedding outside earlier, and MMC Fosi, obviously in Tshwane, the DA is part of a coalition government. As Belinda mentioned, this obviously load shedding has a massive impact on water, on jobs, on economic growth. Inside the city of Tshwane and inside your portfolio, what are you doing to tackle the impacts of load shedding for the residents of Tshwane?
Thank you, Gwena. On your introductory statement, you mentioned that the time for anecdotes and fables is over. We need action. We need to be resolute about actions that we need to take in the country. It is a fact, load shedding is here to stay. It is, you know, when you have a situation, the first thing that you need to do is acceptance. You would have defeated 50% of the problem. 50% of the problem is what you do about that problem you have. Now, in this instance, in the city of Tshwane, we've got 2 power stations that have been run down by the previous government, dating back years. It's a 60 years infrastructure that has been there. We are opening up to the independent market, independent power producers, so that we can be able to augment what we have from Eskom. It is a fact that whilst the ANC government is still enjoying load shedding, we have a plan that is in tandem with what they are doing, making sure that we are independent of Eskom, because the problem of Eskom is here to stay. Whilst it is here to stay, we then make sure that we go to the market and invite the market to come through and make sure that we're able to augment whatever the power that we're getting from Eskom.
Thank you so much, MMC, and good luck with that. I know the people of Tshwane are rooting for you, and I think that Tshwane is becoming a beacon of hope for the residents of Gauteng. But Dr. Mayor, you know, speaking about beacons of hope, I think for many South Africans who have lost hope, the Western Cape has always represented, you know, the fact that things can get better. So for residents, you know, of Gauteng who have not been to the Western Cape, can you describe what the DA difference looks like in action?
Firstly, good morning, everybody, and firstly, thank you and congratulations to our Premier Candidate. In the DA, we have 3 strategic provinces: Gauteng, Western Cape, KwaZulu-Natal. If those 3 provinces are not under ANC after this election, electorally, the ANC will not have a majority in the National Assembly. And so if people of Gauteng come out and vote and unite behind our Gauteng Premier Candidate, change will happen in the National Assembly. In other words, we will have a new government in South Africa. But you ask me now about hope. What does hope look like in the Western Cape? And how does one translate that hope into Gauteng? Gauteng is the center of economic and financial power, so we need to inject hope into Gauteng as well. But hope, we have defined in Xhosa, we say ithemba, but ithemba means two things in Xhosa. It means first trust, and then hope. And so, the first thing you need to do in terms of projecting hope is what we have done in this term of office. We created a vision to build a government that people can trust. So if you want to inject hope into Gauteng, you must build a government that people can trust. That's very important. You will see here, I have a jacket here, a government for you. In this province, we have a government for politicians. If this current premier has a jacket on, it will be a government for us, the politicians. So hope starts with building a government for you, the citizens. And so for us, it is important to understand how you build confidence, how you build trust. First thing that Solly has mentioned also, we have been subjected to a lifestyle audit. Not only me, my wife also. Because politicians steal the money and hide it in the wife's bank account. So when I told my wife, your bank account, my wife is at Capitec, said, the government is zooming into your Capitec. She said, no, I'm not working for the government. I said, we're a government for you. So we will look into your bank account. She was quite upset. She said, go and tell Alan Winde, I'm not a minister in his cabinet. We said, well, Solly said in the end of his speech, he said, we will build a caring government and an ethical government. So, but Solly went further. He said, a lifestyle audit for the politicians and for the officials. If you do that, you build hope, you build trust. And so for us it is important. I'm very happy that people in the communication that I heard here from Solly, that they have not talked down to Gauteng. Solly said, we love the beautiful province of Gauteng. If you want to govern a place, you must love the place. And he mentioned it in his speech. And I'm so happy he did it. Because one can so easily reject your province. You have to reject the government that you have in your province and not your province and its people. So this is how we build hope in the Western Cape. Number one, first meeting, we said we're not building any new roads. We're going to have what we call infrastructure-led economic growth. We don't have kings and queens in our province, but we do have a king and a queen, Kwena, and their names are repairs and maintenance. I think Solly gave hope in his speech because he spoke about repairs and maintenance. My narrow estimation of not knowing the full landscape of Gauteng tells me in the first 3 years we want 100 billion rand in the infrastructure master plan. So the MEC for finance in this province, what I want to hear is that for the next 3 years we put 100 billion rand for infrastructure. What I want to hear is another 50 billion in repairs and maintenance. That's what we do in the Western Cape. There's a portal this morning. You take a phone, you upload it to the city of Cape Town, 4 o'clock, that portal is fixed. Urgency, hope. But more importantly, all of us sit here today in this room. All of us needed 4 things before we came here, Kwena. The first thing we need, I woke up 4 o'clock this morning to come here, switch on the electricity. It works. Secondly, I had to brush my teeth and take a shower. Water works. Sanitation works. Put out my refuse works. So if you want to build confidence and hope, make sure that those 4 things work. I went to Matsabeng, welcome in the Free State. I addressed a group of farmers and the councillor was welcoming me. So when I mentioned that you need 4 those things, she said, Minister, hello, those things I didn't have this morning when I came to your meeting. I said, but how did you shower? But I have water that I have to buy, that I must, if I must wash me. I said, how do you flush the toilet? I must buy water. You don't build confidence, you make people poorer. And so for us in the Western Cape, also govern with humility. Very important. When I listen to your Premier, he governs with arrogance, not govern with humility. And so we focus on 3 things to give people hope. Number 1, economic growth and jobs. So we are busy now developing a 1 trillion rand economy, create a GDP growth of 5%, create 600,000 new jobs. In fact, hope must be real. I heard you said, no more pipe dreams. This is the real stuff from Stats SA. Kwena? In the 4th quarter of 2022, Stats SA reported that in South Africa, 169,000 new jobs were created in South Africa. Out of that 169,000, 167,000 were created in the Western Cape. In other words, 98% of all the jobs that were created in South Africa were created in the Western Cape. The other 8 provinces only created 2. And this is the solution to Gauteng. I like what Solly said, create business confidence, create investment confidence, and create consumer confidence. When you do that, that is the economic growth. We need foreign direct investment. NHI is going to kill us. In fact, we will take the government to court. By the way, I'm sitting here with the Constitution, Kwena. The Constitution says it is only the Minister of Finance, National, that can table a money bill in Parliament. NHI is a money bill, but it was tabled by the Minister of Health, contravening the Constitution. You need 5% economic growth for implementation of NHI. But as Solly said, NHI is your death certificate. Home Affairs will be very busy issuing death certificates the day NHI is being implemented. So I want to conclude. In the Western Cape, we have a Premier with a vision to build a government that people can trust. We believe in infrastructure investment, but the biggest infrastructure is in municipalities. So you as a provincial government cannot sit back. When I was the MEC of Finance, I had oversight over the financial management and infrastructure over municipalities. Every municipality must spend between 2 and 8% of their property, plant and equipment on repairs and maintenance. So that will be the job of the COCTA MEC in Gauteng to make sure that that oversight happens. So for me, lastly, we're going to beat load shedding in the Western Cape. And this is how we're going to do it. Firstly, when we saw, because in Matsebeng, the councillor told me sewage is running in the road. So, well, that's not going to happen in the Western Cape. So what we've done, we put 100 million rand to buy generators for all the sewage plants of every municipality in the Western Cape, so that when there's load shedding, sewage water not run in the street. We did it as a government. But we said, let's show South Africa that there is one town that we're going to make free from load shedding. We have now announced the name of that town, Rifilwe. It is Riversdal in Hessequa. I know Toby Chance wants to relocate. If you want to relocate now, that's the town. We're going to make it free from load shedding. That's the vision. We're going to have a second town, but we said we're going to select towns based on your capacity, containerized modeling, feed into a municipal grid, repairs, maintenance daily, if not hourly. Repairs and maintenance are the kings and the queens of the Western Cape. And so for us, that is important. So hope means trust the government and deliver the goods. And I think this is exactly what I heard in the speech of the Premier Candidate, I want to ask all the people of Gauteng, if you want to see change happening in Gauteng, the Democratic Alliance is the only tool, the only hope to save South Africa. And if we save Gauteng, we can save the rest of South Africa. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Oh, even a round of applause. It's true. Even I feel a sense of hope whenever I hear what you're achieving in the Western Cape. Solly, I think you're going to have to get your future cabinet, inform them now that their partners will have to have lifestyle audits so that they can have those difficult conversations. Tanya, you are obviously the mayor of Nkureleni, and like many of the municipalities that we've governed since 2016 and 2021, I'm sure that you found a very politicized civil service. So what impact did this have on your ability to govern, and what lessons can we take from your experience going into government in 2024 here in Gauteng?
Yeah, thank you, Queen. I think one of the biggest things was coming from a culture of good governance and separation of powers. So when walking in, that is one of the biggest things that I had, is to say good government, separation of powers. But the reality is you walk into administration that is really the employment agency of the ANC, and you also walk into administration, specifically your HODs, that are so politically appointed that it becomes really frustrating to do anything. To the point was when I realized the specifics that was happening, I immediately did an audit within the city to see whose contracts expire when, what are their performance appraisals and their performances agreements that they had signed, linked to their KPIs. Now, when you do that, you can very clearly see who were being given bonuses because of being connected, for a lack of a better word, but we also know it's political appointees, and who are actually the HODs that are there to work, the professionals. I think it's very disconcerting to officials who do want to work and others who don't. So programs that we were desperately trying to get off the ground were sabotaged in such a way that it took you 10 times longer to get any of these programs off the ground. However, I do think there is a space, and a huge space, for people who are professionals within the government industry. And what we had found, trying to create a team of professionals and employ professionals, was the private professional industry was shying away from government because they felt it was so politicized. But if you can overcome that and bring back job proudness, doing the work that you're paid for, then you're starting to have a winning recipe. But it's to surround yourself with officials that know what they are doing, they are professionals, they are qualified for what they are being paid for, and not because it comes from various political parties, because that can make or break any kind of program that you're trying to roll out.
Thank you. Now, my Premier, you've heard from the various regions, the issues that are affecting the province, and you've obviously also gone and seen for yourself. And I think that it's going to be a mammoth task to turn, Gauteng around and rescue Gauteng, given that it's been decades of mismanagement on the part of the ANC. So do you feel like the DA is ready to govern here in Gauteng? And also, what will your first year in office look like?
Well, thank you very much. I think, it's not a question of the DA being ready. It's a question of South Africa not being able to hold any longer, and we need to then accept that. We need to accept that if we're not going to be able to then get Gauteng right, you can forget about the rest of South Africa getting in line. Gauteng contributes almost 40% of South Africa's GDP. Once you understand that, and once you understand that you are the nerve center of everything that else happens, I was saying to the CEO, not the CEO, but one of the senior managers who works for AXA, I was saying the airport, as an example, used to be the center of anybody and anything that is traveling into Africa. Right now, we've been overtaken by Ethiopia, as an example. So you used to have a situation where anybody who wants to fly into Africa must come from Europe, fly here, and then they go into the region. Right now, if you want to fly anywhere in Africa, you now leave South Africa and fly to Ethiopia, or fly to Dubai and then come back to South Africa, or to Africa, to any of the other provinces that you want to, the other countries that you want to go into. So if you understand that you have a gem that is there, that needs to be polished, that needs to be nourished, that needs to be exciting to international investors, and even national investors as well, then you're having a situation where you can then actually get the economy and actually get a better life going for the people of Gauteng. So I've spoken about the infrastructure master plan, and which is something that we have been calling for a very, very long time in Gauteng. You cannot have a situation where provincial government builds houses there, but the municipality is building infrastructure going the other way around. It doesn't work, and I can give you a number of examples. You go to a place called Brick Valley, in the west. That is an example. We've had houses in Mabopane, Soshanguve, before we even took over government there. That houses have to be broken down literally after everything else has been stolen. You go to the Vaal area, you have houses and apartments that have been built cannot be occupied now because they cannot get certificates of occupation, and now you're paying millions of rents, in security. So that's the first thing that we now need to then say, is to then say, if you have an infrastructure master plan that talks to the aspirations of municipalities, but a province that really cares enough to then bring all the plans together and then say, how do we fund it together? And then we're able to then, move forward. But you also build in there the confidence of the private sector. The private sector wants to see where you're putting your money first before they come and put their own money. So if you're putting your money in ensuring that the infrastructure is there, if you're putting your money in terms of security and safety, where police are visible on the ground, and there is actually then a drive to drive meta rate down, to drive infrastructure, demolition and deterioration down, you're able to then ensure that government officials are actually doing their job, and if they're not doing their job, they get to be removed from office. You do that, the investors are then saying, that's a province I can go and invest in. And this is what we want to do. And I'm taking what everybody has said here. Tanya spoke about how you also inherit a politicized administration. Part of what we're going to do, and I've always said, you don't come in and throw everybody out when you come into government. But then people have to make a choice, whether you are political, and if you're a political, you must go put your face on the board outside and get elected. If you're an official, you then do the job of being an official. And that is getting into an office, getting a manifesto to say, this is what you're going to implement, and you go and implement it. You don't become part of the sabotage. You don't then stop projects that are aimed at getting people's life to be better off. So these are things that we're gonna need to then get involved in when we get into office. Minister Mayor speaks about being a caring government that is also transparent in what you're doing. Speaks about you being for the people. Being for the people means that you don't do things because they suit my political party. It means I need to do the things that are going to suit and going to benefit the general public at the end of the day. Your employment opportunities cannot be reserved for certain people within certain political circles. Your awarding of contracts cannot actually then be somehow linked to political party or those that are close to ministers or deputy presidents, as we would have seen, or any of those things going forward. We need to then ensure that you really demonstrate you for the people and do things that are not always popular, but are the right things to do. There's going to be pains as we change the systems going forward. But I can guarantee you it will be for the greater good of the people of Gauteng. Because if we're not going to do it now, I promise you, the next generation will inherit a province and a country that is just in pieces, and we cannot afford that. And this is why we do what we now need to then do going forward.
Perhaps just one last comment from my side. After this election, it's no more the DA, it's now the government for all the people in Gauteng. Tanya spoke about the separation between party and state. So what we are now already working on is a new government for Gauteng. Now people will say, but every system of governance is broken, every administration is broken, every municipality is broken. Where are you going to get the money and the technical expertise and the consultants to come in? Well, we've got news. We are now already working on a memorandum of agreement between the Gauteng provincial government and the Western Cape provincial government. Once you have a provincial government here after the election and the provincial government in the Western Cape, then you exchange staff, you exchange resources, cost you nothing. We can bring people from our provincial treasury to Gauteng provincial treasury and say, put up corrupt-free procurement systems and redesign the financial architecture in Gauteng. Will cost you absolutely nothing. I'm the MEC for agriculture. I've got microsatellites that can measure the moist in the soil so farmers don't have to irrigate. That technology is free of charge to farmers in the Western Cape. That technology can reach Gauteng under the cooperation agreement. But there are many other things. We have established a red tape reduction unit. So that technology, systems we can bring here. We do daily monitoring of what's happening in the Western Cape. We developed a dashboard. I can tell you exactly where the latest crime happened in rural areas. That systems technology, when there's a government in the Western Cape, government in Gauteng, we believe in one united South Africa. So the systems that we build in Western Cape, you don't need to buy or invite consultants. We will give that free of charge because Gauteng belongs to South Africa, Western Cape belongs to South Africa, belongs to the people of South Africa. So that type of technological innovation and assistance, day one after Solly has been sworn in as the Premier of Gauteng, the Premier of the Western Cape, and he will sign that agreement so that the resources can flow because there's no money in Gauteng at the moment, so we don't have to appoint a lot of consultants. That stuff will come free of charge. Thank you, Chair.
Sure. No. That's very exciting news. You know, I've heard Premier Lesufi promising drones and helicopters. I think, Solly, you can now confidently go out and promise satellites. So that's great. Ivan, I've actually got one more question for you, but I have to ask a favor that you keep it short. I'm scared that if you give too much hope, our voters here will move to the Western Cape instead of stay here and vote for us. But obviously, at a municipal level, we've seen a lot of poor service delivery here in Gauteng, and people are losing faith. So from your experience being in the Western Cape and governing the Western Cape, what was the impact of having a DA-led province on service delivery for residents at a local government level?
That's a very important question because the Constitution again speaks about intergovernmental relations and building intergovernmental cooperation. A province cannot succeed unless municipalities succeed. And the majority of the municipalities in Gauteng are dysfunctional. And therefore, through your IGR structures, Solly will, after the election, be the Premier. The Premier has a thing called PCF, Premier Coordinating Forum. He will chair that forum with all the mayors in Gauteng. So we always believe in evidence-based data analysis. So the first thing the Premier will do, he will look at the report from his MEC of COCTA, what is the current state of local government in this province. Based on that, We say don't do everything, focus on 3, 4 big things, and zoom into that. For municipalities in this province, number 1 priority would be to fix the infrastructure issues, water, sanitation, refuge collection, those basic things. In the Western Cape, we have 30 mayors. I told them, if I drive in your town and it's clean, you will get a phone call from me to say, thank you, Mayor, your town is clean. But if your town is not clean, you will also get a call from me and say, what the hell is this? This is not the DA image. So, after this election, Solly will drive through this province and the mayor will get a call and say, what is happening here? Why is this so? And we will do proper oversight. But more importantly, we have developed in the Western Cape a municipal oversight law from the provincial side. We don't just sit there in high offices and let every municipality collapse under our eyes. We have a system where we work with the municipalities and we even send technical assistance. If there's, for example, there was now a problem with Eskom in the Karoo, our MEC for local government was on the ground, worked with Eskom, help. We also asked neighboring municipalities with capacity during the fires with trucks, get it there, but that's a facilitating role of municipalities. We also have a municipal benchmarking program, learning from each other, sharing from each other. Our MEC also bought some fire trucks for high-risk areas. So what we do, to be short, we work with municipalities. They understand that we have a vision to build a government that people can trust, and their job is to build a local government that people can trust, and you can only trust them. There's water, electricity, sanitation, local economic development, and do these things. So a capable state, to conclude, Kwena, 3 things every government needs in South Africa according to the National Development Plan. A capable state. In the Western Cape, we have a capable state. Under Solly, we will build a capable state. Secondly, is leadership. Leadership in some of your municipalities is missing. I look at Umfuleni municipality. I mean, the place is collapsing and people paying tax. So you need leadership at municipal level. The third thing that you need is active citizenship. Citizens taking part, working and cleaning. And I want to thank the citizens of Gauteng. Weekends I see people are fed up with their municipalities. They pick up the dirt, they clean the streets. That is active citizenship. And in the Western Cape, we promote a capable state, leadership, and active citizenship.
No, thank you so much. Belinda, Joburg has become synonymous with, hijacked buildings. I had an aunt that came from New Zealand last week and was shocked. She asked, how do you hijack a building? And even I didn't have an answer. But we recently saw, the risk to human life when one of those buildings caught alight recently and killed multiple people. Do you feel that SAPS has done enough to tackle the issue of illegal building occupation in Johannesburg?
Thanks, Kwena. Unfortunately not. I'm sad to say that I don't believe that SAPS have done enough. But we also cannot just talk about SAPS without talking about what is happening at the municipal level. A lot of the information is available. A lot of the politicians and officials is aware of what's happening. Some of these are started because there's no proper audit of the buildings that are in the city's control, for example, or that are dilapidated. And also the problem of the municipality in Johannesburg in particular, snubbing the private sector who want to come in to assist and also assist with the housing backlog that can, obviously assist government. They're snubbing private sector and holding information, hogging information, which obviously then give a bigger problem because SAPS do not get all the information. But the challenge that we have is because some of these issues had also got to do with corruption. A lot of the information does get to SAPS, people get arrested, and it's just as our Premier candidate just said a few minutes ago, that SAPs need to be done at provincial level. We cannot have a situation where at national level, some dockets and things disappear in between. Information comes, even if it's incomplete, but the follow-up and the checking of whether these people are arrested, whether there's conclusion to these cases, SAPS is really failing not only Johannesburg, but also the residents that is relying on proper policing in the city. Yeah.
Right. No, perfect. Thank you so much. I think we are running out of time, so I'm gonna cut the panel there and allow members of the media to ask questions. I just ask that you speak into our mic. Krazan, do you mind just turning that mic on? Just say which media house you are with and who you are directing the question to. So you can ask questions to any members of the panel, and afterwards we'll also allow for individual interviews. So I think we can start. Just raise your hand if you have any questions.
Okay. Good afternoon to everyone. So my question is, obviously I think we start, Thabiso Koba from Eyewitness News. I think obviously we start with, I think it's a fact that we all know that Gauteng is pretty much up for grabs. I think if the ANC continues its slide, there's a very good chance they lose its majority in Gauteng. And I want to speak about Amapanyaza. This is a very, according to the Gauteng, it's about, about 50,000 young, previously unemployed people who have now, through the Nasispani program, have now been employed by the government. But it's also, I think, as you've alluded to in the past, and as other opposition parties have in the past, it's not just young people, but it's also young voters that maybe the ruling party is using the power of incumbency to actually, woo onto their side. So I just want to know that, I think firstly, how do you manage the messaging around Amapanyaza? Because you have this group, about 50,000 of young, previously unemployed young people who now have jobs and now have salaries and now have something to take back home. How do you manage your messaging around that group in terms of you may not support the project, but also you don't want to demonize them and have them not supporting the DA? I know obviously the DA leader called them drunkards. I don't know how much that helped, but I think that's my question in terms of around messaging. And my second question, also stemming from the first one, is that you become the premier of Gauteng tomorrow. What do you do with those 50,000 young people who are in the Nasispani program? Thank you. Oh, sorry, and I think my last question is for Mr. Fosi in terms of Tshwane. Moloto spoke about that Cape Town, the DA-run city of Cape Town is a beacon of hope for the country. So I just want to know, the DA has been in power for a number of years in Tshwane, save for a week where Umakwarela was the mayor. But other than that, it has been a number of years that the DA has been in power in Tshwane. I want to know, why hasn't the city of Tshwane been a beacon of hope the same way the city of Cape Town is when they're run by one political party? Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, can we just allow
Sure.
Pulet answer, ask and then.
Buleli Treaty Jones, ENCA. Firstly, to maybe Tanya Campbell, what are we looking at for the end here, or for the end of the month in council? Is your name going to be put forward again, once again, as a mayoral candidate? Are you going to be working with the ANC to try and match the numbers to get rid of Mr. Ngondwana as the current mayor of Ekurhuleni? That's number one. Number two, Belinda, what's the way forward now? Of course, just last week, court application dismissed on a basis of lack of urgency. Are you going back to court? Are you going to be challenging the reappointment process of the city manager? That's number two. Number three, Mr. Soli, if you were to be premier, how are you going to fix the current status quo in the city of Tshwane, like my colleague alluded to? The debtors book is sitting at about 23 billion. They're looking at collecting about 6.2 billion within the next 6 months through the Tshwane at Yima campaign. Is it feasible? Is it sustainable? Can this happen? what will you do to change the situation in Tshwane? And just lastly, is the mayor of Tshwane, Celia Brink, going to resign? Is he going back to National Parliament? There are rumors, of course, in the public space saying that he's going. Just your reaction on that. Thank you.
Right, perfect. I think let's answer those questions, and we can move to another round of questions if there are any. I think Solly, you can start off.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kwena. The first thing is that these things we have been asking for years. If you go and ask in the legislature, we have been asking why we're not filling the vacancies in government for a very, very number of years. And we have been told that there is no budget. Let me tell you where the money is coming from now. Money is being taken from social development. So there used to be money that used to then support, NGOs as an example. You go, people are now not, getting their grants as they used to. And we're now seeing the desperation by this government, who are now all of a sudden in the year of elections have all this money and have all these vacancies to fill, which is not sustainable. Provincial Treasury and National Treasury has actually said this is not actually sustainable. It means that you now are stopping certain things somewhere for you to then be able to then implement this project. Whereas if you had done it in a number of years, or you have been building it up, you would have built capacity, you would have built the financial model in which all these things can actually be accommodated. And that's the problem. By the way, you must ask then, what is Panyaza's plan beyond this? There's no plan. This is why all of them are given temporary contracts. There are no permanent jobs that have been offered here. What we have been saying, and this is part of the fight that we want to take, is to then say, if you decentralize, for instance, the South African Police Service, you are actually then able to then recruit within those same people, within the CPFs that are already in existence, people that can be trained, that can be accredited, that can carry guns, that can enforce law, and actually can, arrest people if they are doing wrong. Right now, you can argue about what the Mapanyazas can do. They cannot even sit in police stations and do what do you call a certification of what do you call it? What do they call it? Certified documents, as an example. They are not commissioners of oath, but you have seen them in police stations doing that. They cannot stop you on their own and arrest you. They cannot stop you on their own and search you because they don't have the authority. What you need is you need a province that is able to recruit, that is able to train, accredited training, that you're able to then make sure that it is a professionalized force. So what do we do with them? We need to recruit within them and within the CPFs as well, because in certain instances there's been outcries that the recruitment processes has not been completely fair. So you need to then ensure that you open it up. Yes, there are those that will qualify, that are proving themselves, but there are those that are also coming from the CPFs that also deserves an opportunity because they're doing the job already, and then you can work your way from there. You then ask the question around, the Nasispani as well. As I said, you need to make sure that there is a funding model for these things to continue going forward. Some of the people that have been recruited to be the teacher assistants, you need to then question if they are suitable, because I don't think that the criteria that has been used has actually then given us the best in all instances. Let me be very clear, not in all instances. There are people that still needed to be vetted, that find themselves in positions now where they are going to be exposed to children. We don't know if all of these people that have been recruited are, all of them gone through the process and actually the best that they should be. There are people that have been trained as teachers that are still sitting unemployed. There are people that, sitting with degrees, with qualifications that should have been absorbed into this. Nurses that should have been absorbed. Nurses that are sitting now without jobs. Doctors that are sitting now without jobs. And are saying, why are we not recruited? Why are we not being put into these positions yet? Because in certain instances, CVs are coming from boots of councillors' cars, and then people find themselves in positions. We need to address that. So what we're going to do going forward is that there's going to be a proper recruitment process. There's going to be vetting of some of the people that are there. There's going to be an opening up of, whether we retain a big chunk of them, obviously following a certain criteria, and also ensuring that ultimately you have people that can be trained and absorbed into some of these positions here. That's what we will do. And this is what we will do after elections. But I'm saying, I'm still challenging that, you check whether there is contracts or there is a plan with Panyaza beyond this, and I can tell you right now there isn't. It is up to May, June, and then after that, it's a free-for-all. And these people, if the guys seems to return, unfortunately, some of them will find themselves without jobs. And that I can tell you is going to happen, because Treasury has already said, at the current rate, what has actually been done is not sustainable. There's no money for it in a manner that it has been done. Maybe let me just answer to all the questions, and then the other colleagues can then respond. Pule, you asked about the finances. I can tell you right now that Tshwane is not even in a worse situation than any other municipality. If you go to Infuleni cannot even pay rainwater. In fact, they're using the grants that they're getting to be doing certain things, and they're using those to be paying salaries. So there is a big challenge in there amongst other municipalities. So what you now need is to make sure that you have an integrated plan where you look at municipalities, the ability to, to collect revenue. The reason why you're not able to collect revenue has got to do with the infrastructure as well. So if you don't know who to bill for electricity or for water, it means that at the end of the day, you as a municipality will have to pay rainwater, you have to pay ESCOM, but you cannot recoup that money from somewhere. So this is why I was saying part of assisting municipalities, not only in Tshwane, all municipalities, is to then assist them in ensuring that they have systems in place that can, enable them to then fast track the ability to bill people accurately, but also to then collect revenue when they need to do that. So that will go across a number of municipalities. That will also assist municipalities to build up the capability in order for them to be sustainable in the long run. Because right now, municipalities are not sustainable due to technical losses of electricity and water, due to theft and illegal connections, and so on and so forth. So you fix that, you see that the municipalities will then begin to then get, their houses in order. But also to make sure that we assist municipalities, as Dr. Mayor has said, with expert, capabilities where municipalities seems to be lacking. You bring that skill, to a local level. Tshwane has not been shy. Tshwane has actually contacted National Treasury and said, we want to implement a turnaround financial strategy, and actually has been implemented that for the last year, and I'm sure we're going to see results of that. But it's something that all municipalities needs to then be assisted with going forward, and that is something that will happen. Is Celia going? No, I can tell you right now, Celia is not going anywhere. Celia is going to remain the mayor of the city of Tshwane. Maipa must just go get his facts right.
Right, no, perfect. I think we can allow Temba to answer, then from there Belinda, and then lastly Tanya.
Yep, thank you, Thabo. There's quite a number of points I've written here. Amongst other things, when you take over a municipality, there's what we call a institutional resistance. You have cadres who are still in the system serving as administrators, but they are more of polyficials than officials. Now, with every program that you want to run in the city, one, it will be sabotaged, two, it will not see it to fruition. So these are some of the things that are challenging the municipalities. The instability between 2016 and 2019, we were in bed with a wrong coalition. The EFF, where we had to negotiate our way, each and every report had to be negotiated outside the confines of the chambers, and et cetera, et cetera. And again, is that we were put under administration. You'd remember when Soli left, we were $1 billion positive. When we came back after the administration, we were 2 billion in the red. You can imagine, you can make your thing. One other thing is that 20 years of graft and neglect, infrastructure, lack of maintenance, as Dr. Ivan has said, is a problem. It's not something that you'll be able to solve in one term. It's highly impossible. You need then to change the very same institutional resistance that you're having to have a positive attitude towards making sure that you are kinder and clear to your residents. The culture of non-payment also on services. When we took over, there was a huge culture of non-payment because obviously new political parties, new office in town, and you've got opposition throwing tantrums, informing our residents not to pay, and so forth. We had a Peu Smart Meter project that we're still paying, that amounted to billions of rands, which unfortunately we won the case. We had a fleet issue also in the city of Tshwane that cost us billions and billions. And I must say, taking from the Premier Candidate's words, is that we are doing quite a lot in the city, making sure that we candor to our residents. We are clear with each and every month. We talk to our residents, informing them what our status is. So far, we're paying our trade partners. Randwater, I can clearly tell you now, we are current with Randwater. We're no longer we're owing Randwater. ESCOM, we are trying a level best, and at this point in time, we're not in the red with Randwater. Services are being rendered in the city of Tshwane. They might not be rendered in the speed that we want to, but it is because it is the only municipality in this province that we're getting all the sabotages. Let our premier candidate get into the seat, we will be able to have the wheel turning.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kwena. Thanks, Pule. I see you are asking about the court action against the city manager. Firstly, last week when we were in court, the merits of the case was not even determined or discussed. The whole case of the city of Joburg was about urgency. And the case was basically struck off the roll purely because of urgency. So there's no way that the DA is going to just sit back while we see that the city is collapsing. We see that everybody's asking about Tshwane, but they're completely ignoring the fact that in Johannesburg, the city is standing to lose 1.2 billion rands worth of grants that while the city is collapsing. And we're saying all of this has happened under the custodianship of this current city manager, that the city has told us that the reason why they hush-hush behind closed doors rushed to appoint him was to avoid losing some of these grants. And that hasn't happened, and yet they are spending a whole lot of money on court matters to retain him in that position. So to answer your question in a nutshell, no, we're not taking it lying down. There were clear directives in that judgment that had directed us that this can be argued at a lower court. I'm not going to go into detail as to how we're approaching this, but we are not taking it lying down because the city of Joburg is collapsing and residents in the city are obviously bearing the brunt of the collapse of the city that is bent on protecting one individual at the expense of the residents while all of this is happening. Thanks.
Tanya?
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, the motion that is being alluded to, in our opinion, currently is passage talk. There are processes within council. The programming committee sits next week. This motion has not gone through a programming committee as yet. So as we sit here, I do not and cannot tell you what is in that motion because we have not seen that motion. So until we see that motion and make a clear decision on a way forward, I cannot comment on it. What I will tell you is that in the DA we will obviously take the direction that will be the best for the citizens in Ekurhuleni. I don't know if you remember the day that I got voted out, you interviewed me, and I said I would refuse to be in cowboy politics. And I still refuse to be in cowboy politics. When the facts are there, the facts are clear, what the situation will be, and what the best outcome will be for our residents. That's the day I can tell you what the DA's stance will be going forward.
I just want to mention something about the methodology of governance, because somebody asked about, will this program be scrapped? What will happen with this program in Gauteng when Solly becomes the premier? The DA is a responsible government. We do public expenditure reviews and we do policy reviews. We don't just wake up one morning and say, scrap this program, scrap that program. We are quite methodological about these things. For example, in the Western Cape, under the ANC, they had a Western Cape Youth Council. When we did the review, we saw that this is a council of the Western Cape government using public money, taxpayers' money, to feed the ANC Youth League in the Western Cape. Unethical. You cannot do that. So we stopped it through a process. We repealed the bill, saved public money. Another body, the Western Cape Provincial Development Council, another ANC making. When we got there, we saw there's a Western Cape Provincial Development Council. We put it to a review, public expenditure review, and a public value review. We saw, but this is simply money, taxpayers' money, to feed the Western Cape ANC COSATU. We stopped it, and in this province, we will have to do public expenditure reviews and public value reviews, and on the basis of that, we will then decide. So all these entities that you have here in Gauteng, Kwena, we will do a public entity review. Is there value for money? Can it be done outside? Better, cheaper? And also, are we implementing the principles of fiscal consolidation and fiscal sustainability, but also the creation of public value? On that basis, we take decisions. Unlike, we don't take instructions from the Tule House. We take instructions from the data, evidence, and research, and then we take an informed decision.
Right, thank you. I think let's allow for one last round of questions from the media. We can start there, then that side, and then afterwards, all of the panel members will be available for one-on-one interviews. You can go ahead, sir.
Brian Sokutu from The Citizen. Mr. Msimanga, how confident are you about the DA winning a sizable black vote in Gauteng? This I say against the background of DA leader John Steenhuisen having taken flack for his remarks in Soshanguve.
Thank you very much. My name is... Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Lung. I'm from the Mail and Guardian. Sorry, I'm just going to do a follow-up on Tawiso's question. I don't think you answered the question. I think the question was, will you scrap the Nasispani initiative when you come in as a premier? And the second one is, you've been saying the Nasispani initiative is a ANC cadre deployment type of employment. You have not produced any evidence of that to say this is why we are saying this. And you can't now say when you are there that you are totally going to scrap this. You are saying you are going to be looking at it. So, which means in essence, you see that there's might be nothing wrong with it. And secondly, the issue of Tshwane. You've been speaking about water, how there's not sufficient infrastructure in Johannesburg and what's going wrong in Johannesburg, but you have not touched about the issue of Hammanskraal. The reality is the Tshwane municipality is failing to provide water in Hammanskraal. And you're speaking about other places where you are actually governing. There's issues. And the issue of Western Cape, I mean, there are complaints in Western Cape that there's certain areas that you are looking after. And there are places like Delft where gang issues are there. There's crime in Western Cape, but we are not speaking about that. We are speaking about the part we are doing right. Just want to hear from you. What is it that you say in the Western Cape you are doing so good, but there are some parts of it that are complaining? People are complaining and saying, look, we are not happy about what the DA is doing. And lastly, in the Western Cape, how sure are you that going into these elections, you're actually going to win that province outright as the DA, considering your stance on Israel? Thank you very much.
Okay, we had a hand here as well.
Phumzile Mlangeni from the SABC. Mine is on Tshwane as well. You seem to be shying away from accountability, and you are mentioning a lot of things, trying to justify why Tshwane hasn't been doing well. It's been 8 years now. You mentioned sabotage, you mentioned a lot of things. But how do you convince my mother who's in Soshanguve, that it's sabotage, who knows nothing, who's not privy to that, but knows that it's the DA that took over 8 years ago, and since then I have not been, receiving adequate services. The fact that you are failing, to take control, and blaming sabotage and all these things, does that not prove that you are not in control? You are failing to be in control of the city. Thank you.
Right, that looks like the last round. So I think Solly will allow you to go first. Then from there, Temba, you can speak to the issues of Hammanskraal and Shosh. And then we can end off with Dr. Mayer.
Well, thank you very much, Kwena. Lunga, there's been videos that have been floating around of CVs coming out of people's boots. Evident, there, black and white, color, if you would like. That has been there to then say, here are CVs, people record it, saying, here are CVs, this one's supposed to go in, this one's are supposed to go in, and this is not supposed to go in. Funny enough, the media has reported very little on it. Panyaza himself says, we are going to look into this, and this was last year already, and nothing of it has ever come up. And I think you need to be asking, whatever came out of that, that process. And then we can then say these things are done in a fair manner. That's the first thing. I didn't say that we are going to do away with a Nasisipani, because if you look at what the Western Cape has done, in fact, if you go to the city of Cape Town, the city of Cape Town has implemented the Wardens program. But it has actually done something very different. They've made sure that they were acting in law in creating that. People were trained by accredited providers. Actually, now they have certain powers that those guys have. That in this instance, you ended up not having the full law behind you, and this is why there's been a fight between Panyaza and Minister Lamola and also Minister Tele, because these things were just rushed in without even following proper processes. Now, you can do, like what the Western Cape has done, plan this thing, budget for it, implement it properly, or you can do what has actually happened. And there's also all sorts kinds of things that are now coming up in terms of how much has been paid to the service provider. What kind of training has actually then been provided there? Because in certain instances, we are told about 300 million plus that has been, that has been paid, and we're still investigating what is it that that had been paid for. What is it that now they are accredited to do? Why are they not doing what they're supposed to be doing? Because now they've been taken all over. Sometimes you find them in police stations doing affidavits. Sometimes you find them in certain police stations working as PAs. So we need to then know what is it that they're recruited to do, and are they actually then doing that? So to answer your question, and as Dr. Ivan has said, it's not an issue of us saying that there is no merit in creating space for wardens. What you need to then do is, are they playing an effective role as things stand, as the process has been followed? Are we able to then do it much better following where it is actually working, so that you're able to then have, call it the fiscal prudency, and also to look at the effectiveness that the public is actually able to then experience from them, taking into consideration. And then you're able to then do that. And this is why I was saying, once you then look into that, you will then determine whether this program is worth carrying forward, or this program, while you might be having good people within the system, you are able to then bring other people. And I've made an example right from the get-go. The CPFs that for years have been doing the work, that have been now sidelined, they're not being assisted, they're not being brought in. How do you then absorb those as part of the program to then ensure that you have a force that is able to then deal with crime in Gauteng? There was also an issue, and we need to then also look at not just Nasisipani from the sake of only Mapanyaza. There's also other things that I spoke to. I've spoken about people that are exposed to our children on a daily basis. And I've said, you cannot have people that haven't really been vetted looking after children. And I'm saying, we don't know what is the we've asked questions. What is the process that is being followed to vet these people, to make sure that you don't have people that are not suitable looking after our children? We have teachers that have been trained. We have nurses that have been trained. In fact, this provincial government paid, for training of nurses that are not being employed, as an example. So why are we not even visiting that? Why are we not visiting that to then say those same nurses that have been trained and paid for by this province, need to somehow find themselves being recruited? So this is why we are saying, to an extent, this looks like a political ploy that has been put in place. Because there are people that through the years have been trained, the people that are qualified to do certain things, but have been somehow sidelined because this is a program that we now need to then quickly show, some results without following what has been happening throughout a number of years. You're asking about the issue of water, and I think this is the question that has also been asked this side. I can put it on record to you that when we started dealing with the issue of water in 2017 already, we were stopped by Nomvula Mkonyane. I can tell you on record that we were stopped because they understood that should we get it right, it is the end of them in Hammanskraal. We were told that, you cannot implement this. We went out on tender. The tenders were already, we received favorable tenders. National Treasury says you can go ahead because we wanted to do a PPP. And that meant that you were going to then deal with the water in Hammanskraal, not only in Temba, but it's a value chain that starts in Rooiwal and the flow of water up to Temba. Now, we were looking at fixing that, ensuring that you build capacity, because before we came in, the water issue in Hammanskraal had been a problem for a number of years. Before that, a plant that should have been actually decommissioned or actually then updated 10 years even before we got into government, hadn't been updated. So you're still having an issue of capacity. We didn't throw our hands up. We went to the market, and it's there in black and white. You can go and look for it, where we then said, let's look into the value chain. And there were people that says we are ready to do that. But bulk water supply is not only the competency of a local municipality, by the way. You need national office and national minister to then give the go-ahead, which the Nomvula Mkonyane, and I'm putting it on record, and you can then go investigate this, said you're not going to get it from us. So what we did do is to then say, let's look at what we can break down in terms of chunks at Rooiwal and then build your way from there. We worked on fixing the Temba the Temba purification plant. We fixed Temba purification plant. We built oxygenization tanks and all of that. What happened? They were very much the week before they were supposed to be put into commission. They were vandalized. It's there. It was reported. It's there. There's a case that has been opened to then look into that. So is that a coincidence that when you're trying to fix problems, there are those that will come and sabotage you? No. It is because there's a political play at hand. But there's also another element at play. There is corruption that is also taking place because there are people that benefit from running tankers all the time in these communities. And once you're able to provide water permanently, then certain things are out of commission for them. And this is why will end up happening in a manner that is happening. So you will go and fix the infrastructure. You will then see how that infrastructure gets to then be targeted and to be damaged, in order to ensure that there are certain services, temporary services that continue to then run there. You then say there is an issue about we're running away from the Western Cape. We've never said we're running a clean government, but we're running a better government by all standards. I'm not saying it. Go and look at the South African Police Services own reports. Murder rate is reduced by 27% in the Western Cape. In Gauteng has gone up. So we're not saying we're running a better government, or we're not saying we're running a perfect government, but we're running a better government. We have started putting resources, and even now in Midval, we started now putting cameras all over to be able to then assist the police and the security personnel in order to track movement of vehicles, movement of people, so that you're able to then start doing patrol a whole lot better. We have actually at some point even asked for intervention from a national perspective in terms of getting the ministers, or ministers allowing us to then recruit and have many more police at a provincial level that can be doing the job. As I said, it only revolves around us being able to then get more policemen recruited and trained, and actually then being able to then deal with provincial specific issues that are there. So, to then say crime is still high there, while we still are saying the battle is to then decentralize the police authority from a national to a provincial level. That is something that, national must also take some responsibility for. I think, Mem, you also say that, on the stance of Israel. I don't know where this thing comes from that the DA stance on Israel is anti-Palestine or anything like that. The DA has been very, very clear for a number of years. We stand for a two-state solution. We've been saying it even before anybody started talking about it. It's there in black and white, it's there on record. We have been saying you cannot have a situation where you want to take sides, the war would end. Where you need to then say is to force everybody around the table, sit around the table, come up with a two-state solution. Unfortunately, the ANC trying to run away from their mess has now brought in this issue as a campaigning issue. And unfortunately, the media has lapped it all up and forgotten what has been the DA stance all along. The DA stance has been from day one. You need to then put these people around the table and make sure that there's a meaningful engagement, and people need to then come up with a two-state solution. John has been very, very clear about how we don't support Netanyahu's push to then control how Palestinians should access services, or how they should then determine how they want to then run a sovereign country. We have been very, very clear on that. But unfortunately, this seems to have been forgotten once this is now becoming a tool by the ANC against the Democratic Alliance. But go into history, look at what has been our stance in that issue, and then you'll find that we have been very consistent, and we remain consistent in that. Ma'am, you say the issue of Soshanguve, about the services that people are getting. I think MMC has been very, very clear about what we have been doing. I can tell you right now, go and see how in Soshanguve, Mabopane, and Garankuwa, on a weekly basis, you have to take cement bags out of holes, out of sewer lines. How you have to take things that they call foreign objects out of pipes that they shouldn't be, tree trunks out of sewer lines, blankets, cement bags. Those things don't put themselves there. Those things don't put themselves there. There's sabotage, clear sabotage that is taking place. You have a situation where you go to Juk Lane, where police have to escort Tshwane officials to go and do work. How do you then say that services cannot be rendered while the same people are stopping electricity personnel from coming in to deal with issues of outages, issues of blocked drain or pipes that have burst? Police have to now escort, Metro Police have to now escort the city of Tshwane officials. So, to then point a finger and say there's failures by the DA, we also now need to then look at where the real challenge is. And the real challenge is to deal with people that haven't accepted that they're losing power. And I'm scared that this might also be a thing that will continue in the province when they lose power in the province. To then say we will continue to sabotage and show South Africa that only us can govern. It's a damn shame that we have come to that as a democratic South Africa. We need to get to a space where people lose power gracefully, and allow those that take power to do their job without them hindering or without them playing politics.
Thank you so much. I think that we're running out of time. Solly does have another engagement in Hammanskraal. I know that Mail and Guardian, you had a question for Dr. Ivan Meyer. I think that he can answer you directly, as well as any of the questions that you may have for MMC Fosi. Although you are all invited to the State of the Capital address as well, and can ask him Tswane related questions there. But he will be here if there are any questions that you need answered. So thank you so much to everyone for coming out today, members of the media, or DA public representatives, and all of those that tuned in online or on the various networks. So with that, I'm going to close this true State of the Province address. Thank you so much. And as I said, you can have one-on-one interviews here now. Thank you.